Hello, this is a demo tutorial for rust-analyzer.vs. Rust-analyzer.vs is a Visual Studio extension that lets you develop Rust applications using Visual Studio 2022. Uh, Using this demo tutorial, I plan to demonstrate the various features that are made available through this extension. As of today, March 27th, 2023. Probably the only big feature other than fit and finish and bug fixes and polish, the only big feature remaining as part of this extension is the cross-platform development experience, somewhat like CMake with WSL2 in the C++ projects. Alright, so let's get started with the demo. Now, I will demonstrate the various features using, I have a collection of bunch of Rust um, applications, and many of them have test failures, some of them have build breaks, and through this demo we will fix all of them, and along the way you can see how the various features work. Alright, so off we go. So the first thing is the concept of a super workspace in rust-analyzer.vs. A super workspace is simply a collection of Rust workspaces. So it's a folder, it's a giant folder with a lot of subfolders that are each Rust workspaces. So let me open this super workspace. Now this is something that I use for unit test integration tests as part of the product development. So you can see that this super workspace contains, each of these is a pretty much a standard Rust workspace, cargo workspace, right? Now a quick tour of the features. So we have the test explorer here that we will shortly start using. We have the output window where the real-time logging from the extension happens. So if you face any issues, you can actually refer here and send across the debug logs and so on and so forth. So there is no log that is, there's nothing that is logged by the product that isn't displayed here, right? That's the advantage of this. Right. Other than that, I think it's pretty standard. Let's start with searching for. Let's just start with fixing the test failures. Okay, so let's start with searching for all the unit tests in the super workspace. Okay, so we have these, and we will fix them one by one, and that will provide a demo of all the features. Okay, so the first one is here, and you can see there is Intellisense, right? Statement completion and all the other goodies of VS, right? It may take, especially if the workspace is large, it may take some time to load, but eventually you'll be able to do statement completion, and as you can see, this is the documentation, and you can press F12 and go to the definition, the usual. And this is made possible by the Rust language server integration. That is from the Rust team, but overall, you have all this nice stuff, right? So this is the usual VS editor. Now let's go here and let's try and first build it. So let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see there are some build errors, and the build errors, as usual, they come on the error list, or you could go to the output window and navigate from there as well. So both of them are, this is standard VS, right? Right, so now what is happening here is that this config needs to be defined, right, for the build to succeed, because otherwise, so we need to define this. So what we can do is we can pass in, this is again rust-analyzer.vs feature. So we can pass in two additional cargo build arguments, additional flags, right, and then trigger a build, right. sorry, just trigger a build. Okay, so here there's some warning, so we'll leave the warning for now, and we'll see what the uh, build. So the build has been successful. Now we should be able to go to the tests are not visible, so what's the reason? We can go debug it. So it looks like there is a problem with the test, and the problem seems to be that we have the same issue here, and the issue is that this requires the same compilation error during the test also needs to be enabled, right? So we're going to use the same properties windows again and pass the same flags to test discovery. So this is what cargo test uses to discover all the tests, so it internally, right? And then now if you do a build so that it resets the build, right? If you do a build here, and then you can go refer to the tests window and you can see what's happening here. So so you can see that it is okay. So it looks like there's an error here. Now what this error says is that there is currently a change that is required in the Rust compiler, and that change is currently in the RFC process, and in the absence of that we will need to install the Rust nightly. So the Rust nightly is required only for unit testing support, right? And I have already installed the Rust nightly. The error message contains detailed instructions on how to go, where to find Rust nightly, how to install it, but we have to enable that on the machine, right? And the way to do it is Rust up default, and you can just say nightly, right? And this switches the toolchain to nightly. And now if you do just a refresh again, so you can just save any file in the workspace, and you can see you have a bunch of tests coming up here, right? And this is the usual people that are used to C# and C++ unit tests. It should be pretty simple for them, right? So this is, now let's just run them and see what happens. So you can see in the output window, it's usual, like the complete picture is presented. So anything that is prefixed with ra.vs is from the Rust test adapter, right? All of this, so you can get a detailed picture of what's happening. So in case you need to report any errors, all the command line arguments and everything, in case you need to report any errors, file a bug, you can just copy paste this and send across. Okay, so the tests have failed, and the usual standard experience applies here. You can navigate to the tests, and you can see where the test is, what the error message was for the test, right? So what we're going to do, looks like the values don't match. All right, so this is a simple enough test. What we're going to do is again the discovery. So this is a bug, we're going to fix that later on, but in short, you can still run these tests now and see what happens, right? So they've all succeeded. Another fantastic thing you can do is debug the tests, right? So right click, it's the same experience, right? So you can right click and say debug, and this is so you can see that the tests are now being debugged. This is the same experience, right? You have call stack and locals and autos windows and things like that, right? So when the program gets a bit complicated, you will need all of that, right? But other than that, breakpoints, call stack, everything is the same. So you are able to debug tests in the same way that you do it for C# projects, right? So this workspace, so remember that the test projects is a super workspace, and this has multiple Rust workspaces, right? And we fixed all the tests and compilation errors for one of the workspaces. Now there are other workspaces, so this one we have fixed. Let's go to this one, right? So this one seems to be a bit more involved, and this, okay, so the same stuff here. So let's just do a build, and here you can do a clean, you can do we'll come to this cargo Clippy, cargo format, we'll come to that later, but right now let's just do a build. So this is built fine, right? And in the background you should be able to see what's happening, right? So looks like the cargo test is still running, and sometimes there is an issue with the cargo, or with there's some integration issue due to which it takes a while, right? We'll fix that eventually. But you can see, right, the tests have been loaded here. And the same thing applies here, right? So you can right click and say run. Okay, so we have run the tests in this project, right? And we can see there are two failures, so let's fix them one by one. The first failure is this, and let's put a breakpoint here. And so what it requires an environment variable to be set for it to pass, right? Now for that, what you need to do is let's just debug it and see how it happens. Hold on a second. So yeah, let's just debug this. So the val says not found. Okay, so it says not found, which means this environment variable has not been set for by the test execution, right? So that's the reason for the failure. So what we can do is we can use rust-analyzer.vs, one of the settings, to pass this environment variable, right? And this is the execution environment equals value. All right. Okay, so once you do this, you'll need to rebuild it because the reason is, I'll show you. The reason is once you rebuild this, it has a specific test container, right? And the test container is generated every time you build, right? So the test container is called rust tests. That needs to have this environment. So all the settings are set here. So this is as equivalent of a DL, right? This is what tells you where to locate the tests, what are the binaries to use, and things like that for rust-analyzer.vs. Now once you've set this, build it again, right? And then if you see, it has been set here, right? So now the test should pass, right? So now if you run the tests, they should so great, it's passing here, right? And you can see this particular test has been ignored for whatever reason, right? And you can see the ignore message is coming here. For now, let's just unignore it, right? So again, as I was saying, this is a bug, but it shouldn't stop normal development. The test container refreshes, right? So once you run this, you should see only one failure. So that's right, only one failure. And if you saw, I did a Ctrl+K, Ctrl+C to comment out the line, right? So this functionality also works. Sorry, just give it a minute. Now run this again, and you can see the, as usual, you can see what the errors are happening here. And we have one test failing, so let's just go fix that as well. So this should fail. Remember, these are my unit tests as well. I used my right, and this is again, this is the library rs test. This provides a bunch of funky stuff. I think this is called a fixture here, and the fixture says assert not equals, right? And the fixture is essentially this one fixture. I think there's a method as well, right? I'm not quite sure where the fixture is. Yeah, this is the fixture. So it returns, but it can this is actually a pretty cool library, pretty cool package. So you can use it to do all kinds of data driven development. You can see all this rs test macros and things like that, right? So in this n equals, I think it's just equals, and that was the problem, right? So now all the tests, sorry, there is no such thing as assert. Yeah, it's assert equal, right? Great. Right, now let's see, they should all pass. That's great. Right, so they've all passed. We've shown how to debug, how to use the Intellisense, you can all this editor, and rs test has a bunch of what you can see, what they are, what their documentation. So great, right? So let's go to the next test. So we fixed this. Now let's go fix this one. So this one is so just minimize this. So same drill with this. So build it first. Great, you built it, and then it has appeared. Just run them. Great. So this one didn't need much of hand holding. Then let's find out the next test. So this one also succeeds. So the next test is this, right? So let's go there again. Same drill. So just build it again. So this one has, this is a cargo workspace. It has two libraries, right? So you should see two. Well, it looks like only one of them have tests, right? The main doesn't have tests. Yeah, the main doesn't have tests, right? So we have only one library up here. So let's just run all of them. Great. So this is passing as well. Then let's go to the next one. Okay, so this has a bunch of tests. I think this is pretty much the last project. Yeah. Now this is a complex workspace, super complex workspace. So let's just locate it. We fix this. Now this has multiple projects. So there are two libraries you can see. If you open cargo.ml, it has two members. So this is a virtual workspace, and then it has two member workspaces, right? And they both have tests. So if you build this, you should see two libraries appear here, two test containers appear here, right? So let's just go ahead with that. Sorry about that. So build. Okay, so build's fine. What happens to the test? So the test discovery is going on. Okay, so we have two of these appear here, right? So one corresponding to adder and one corresponding to add one. And then let's run them both, see what happens. Okay, so there are two failures here and one failure here. Let's fix this. So again, these are a duplicate of my previous this thing, right? And the fix is easier, right? So fix is just adding a 2 here. Right, and this should pass. And this one is add 1 to 4. So what is add 1? Add 1 is x plus 1, okay? So if it is x plus 1, then we should expect 5, right? And so let's just run them again. So we should expect only one test to be failing now, right? Now they are all weirdly named because I use this as the input to my unit test, the product unit tests. So that's why you see, they are all pretty weirdly named, right? So if you add 2 to 4, ideally, if the math is right, you should get a 6, right? And then let's just go and fix the, this is a test for ignore, right? So, and I think it should be 4. So let's wait for the discovery. And discovery is done. Okay, so we have everything green, right? So now, we've fixed all the tests. We've demoed most of the features, right? Now the other thing is, we can see some Clippy, so you can see this is, here are some, Clippy warnings. So let's just go and run Clippy on this. Let's see what happens. So let's just do a Clippy first, right? And so there are some errors here, right? Yeah, so this is so looks like, okay, so ideally this should have navigated, but for whatever reason this navigation is broken. I think it is because of this. Okay, and the error says use, it's not used. So using std, so number 4, so main.rs line number 4, std is not used. Really? Okay. this adder, and it says yeah, anyway, so now you might be wondering where is it getting these when it runs Clippy. So the Clippy is being, you can see the command prompt for Clippy. Clippy has been run with these settings, right? So where is it getting? So you can go change these default settings here in options, rust-analyzer.vs. So you can change this bunch of default options. So for example, for unit test execution, just to get full stack trace, remember that whatever you put here, for example, it's going to get overridden by any corresponding settings at the file level, right? So you can change execution args. You can set it to 1 here if you want, or full to get the full stack trace. Right. So this is Clippy, and then you can also do format. So the Rust format will, as you can see, it is, it was, you can see the change here, right? Std add one and formatted to, Rust format. Right. I think if you just do this, it's going to be Clippy clean as well. I'll just give it one more shot. But yeah, the point is that oh yeah, it is a bunch of errors. So the whole idea is that Clippy and format has been integrated, FMT have been integrated, and what you can do is you can essentially use them from here, right? Now the only other thing that is pretty interesting is the ability to run Rust examples. So Rust provides a feature, Cargo provides a feature where you can actually provide, if you are authoring a library, you can actually provide the examples of that library for other people to use. So for example, if this is a library, if this is technically not a library, but it's a binary, and then actually let's go to a better one. So live with examples. So for example, if this is a library and we have a method called add, then you can actually provide examples that use this method, right? An example is a simple Rust app with a main method, and that shows how to use the API. For example, in this case, it shows how to use add, right? Which is not too technically challenging. So what you can do here is the same rules apply here as well, right? You can right click and just say, you can put a breakpoint here in the example. And so Rust example, there are two kinds, right? So one is a folder, and if it's a folder, then the entry point has to be named as main. Or if it is not a folder, then you can just name it as eg1 dot we can name it as the name of the example, right? And what you can do here is you can also say that so this will list all the targets across the entire super workspace. So what we're looking for is, we're going to set this sorry, not this one, but lib example lib. So eg2. So you can actually, this is probably should fix this. There are too many things and it's very hard to tell which is which. Okay, so this is this, or you can also come and do set a startup item, in which case if you press F5, right, it directly launches that, right? So then you can see F10, you can do the usual stuff. You can see where it's coming, what's the current thread, and all the funky stuff. You can also see the output of the project here, right? So you can see it not found and things like that, right? So this is the console for this, right? And usual debugger stuff applies here. So you can set it. And what you can also do is you can also set this environment variables, same mechanism. So right click, say properties, and environment debugger execution environment, set it to so what you can do is set it to this is a B. So remember that if your environment has a space, it needs to have a quote, right? And then you can set another environment, say xx equal to 1, and then we will say a equals question mark, right? So you can just remember the settings, so you can now see them when we debug them, right? So if you debug them, F10, 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 right? So you can see that the environment is being read from here, right? So that's pretty much it, and thanks for your attention, and please try it out. Please use it in your day-to-day work, and if there are bugs, I would love to help you out. Right, I'm doing this because I love the language, and I hope to do a fair bit of coding in it in the next uh, you know in the near future. Please file any bugs. Certainly provide feedback on the marketplace, and if you're filing a bug, it'll be very helpful if you can provide the relevant parts of the output of this. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye bye.